Hey guys, Josh from Sportitude here. Today, going to be talking about a football boot review. So, what I've got in front of me here is four key boots from the Asics football boot range. Now, we're looking at the Menace, the Testimonial, Tigreor, and the Flash, this little guy over here. So, I would say the Menace, Testimonial, and Tigreor are the top of the line models, and there's some subtle differences about each of those, which I'll talk about, which may be applicable to you and the boot that you're looking for this season. And then there's also the Lethal Flash. Essentially, this little guy comes in as a slightly sort of middle-range boot. However, there's a lot to like about that boot for the price it is. So I would like to talk about the Testimonial first. And the reason I'm going to go to Testimonial is it's the IT4 model. Now, this is a new colour for 2018. However, the boot has been the same for 3 years in terms of the engineering. So they haven't changed anything about the sole, the sprig configuration. They haven't changed anything about the upper. It's still a kangaroo leather upper. Obviously, the only things that have changed are the colour. So in terms of where this boot sits, it's designed for a firmer ground. Now, the sprigs are a little bit longer, just subtly longer than what you're looking at from the other range through here in the moulded series. So therefore, some players have found some success using it on a slightly softer deck if need be. But what Asics have done is they use like a nylon outsole with this boot. So therefore it is naturally a little bit harder underneath the foot. However, what they've done with the tips of the sprigs is they've used a sort of a PU blended base, so sort of polyurethane base to give it some sort of cushioning in the sprig configuration. Now, not to the naked eye, so if I press down on that, it's not going to actually give. However, when obviously you're running and put a bit more force through your foot, it's going to give just ever so slightly. So that's the Lethal Testimonial there. Now, a few colours in the range this year, so hit the link below to this video and we'll take you through the website and show you some of the more options through there. Next boot I'd like to talk about is the Menace. So second season of this little guy here. It was an absolute cracker last year. So we in store sold a lot to our football boot clients, and obviously online it was a big seller as well. Now this is just the sky blue colorway. There's going to be the black carryover, and there's also like a light glacier grey color as well, which again under this video, hit the link and we'll take you through to the website. So what's different about this boot in comparison to the Testimonial? So the way we've been selling the Menace is that it's sort of a happy hybrid, sort of sits between the Tigreor, the Testimonial as well. So it's a lighter boot, it's a Tajin synthetic. So what that essentially means is it has a little bit of give. It's been laser cut, so it's going to be a lot lighter. And also, it won't absorb the moisture. That's a big one. So if you're a football player that plays in a relatively wet climate, just know that this little fella here doesn't absorb the moisture. Rain, wet grass, whatever it be, it's a fantastic boot for that option. Being a lighter boot on top, you don't get that soft kicking feel which you do out of your Testimonial and your Tigreor. However, it's cushioned enough. There's other synthetic boots in the market which are quite thin. This little guy doesn't feel that way. When you put it on, it does feel like you've actually got a leather boot on your foot. So the Tajin synthetic materials has been around the place for, Asics have actually launched it a few years ago, about 5 years ago with a football boot, and don't quote me on the footy boot they launched it on. I think it was a Gel Ultimate or something. However, they dropped it away for a couple of years and have brought it back in this little guy here, new and improved. So the actual cut of the boot as well, I didn't talk about this before, but we're talking all four boots in front of me have a HG 10mm heel to toe gradient. So what that essentially means is lifting up the heel 10mm, take a lot of stress off that calf and Achilles, which is great for football players because 90% of the football boots in the market are on a zero drop. So there's a lot of stress and strain going through that lower Achilles insertion into the base of your heel. So next boot, Tigreor, this sort of guy here. This is a new and improved boot in 2018, and the reason why is because they've injected their flight foam midsole into this boot. So you can see here, it's at the back of the boot. I'll just bring it in closely, walk around the table. I'm still here, guys. So you can see where it says flight foam there. It's hard with the black, I know, but flight foam cushioning system in previous videos I've done is essentially their new midsole that they're going to roll out in all their top of the line running shoes. And this is the first time they've put it into a footy boot. So nice and light, very cushioned, very responsive, and yeah, just to, I suppose, make their most supportive molded boot, even more supportive. So that's one thing I want to talk about here is with the Tigreor, if I just turn it around and compare it to the Testimonial, pardon me, you can see the Testimonial has quite a bit of forgiveness at the back of the boot through here. So the actual external, you could say almost heel count or heel base actually comes down at the base of the ankle through here, or the base of the heel. Therefore, it provides a bit of flexibility depending on the width of your foot at the back in relation to your heel. However, the Tigreor is deeper and it's got an internal heel counter. So for ankle support, this little guy is the one. It's got a lot more support, potentially for someone who's maybe a little bit heavier, does a lot more jumping. This little guy here will certainly give you a lot more ankle support. Sprig configuration underneath the bottom here is very similar to what they did last year. So they put a lot of focus around underneath that first Met head through the forefoot here. So again, I'll flip the Testimonial upside down. You can see here, you've essentially got the three sprigs sort of splitting around that forefoot toe-off area, where if you just hone in on the Testimonial on that medial side, you've got five sprigs there. How's my maths? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Obviously covering that sort of toe-off phase. So there's a lot more sort of control and traction for when you need to sprint and take off quite quickly. However, the base is a little bit stiffer. So that's one thing to point out with the Tigreor. It is a more supportive boot. One, it's deeper at the heel counter. It's got a stiffer base and it has a few more molded sprigs around that forefoot. Therefore, it does make it a little bit stiffer in comparison to the Testimonial through here. Now, I want to jump onto the Lethal Flash. Now, this little guy here, I wouldn't expect you to know this at home, but the base of this is actually cut off of their legacy from last year. So it was a very, very popular boot. It was popular in the rugby scenes, to be honest. We saw a lot of Lethal legacies out on the pitch, pardon me, with rugby, and they've rolled it over into their football boot series. Now, on the front of the box, it actually does say rugby. However, I've seen a lot of players, key players in the AFL, wear this boot purely because they're usually a bit heavier, do a bit more jumping and landing. Jared Ruffhead, for example, was one player that wore this engineered boot last year in 2017, and obviously he's a fairly decent football player, so I would back that very highly. Now, in terms of the shoe itself, it's got an internal heel counter like the Tigreor, so nice and strong. It's got a very similar sprig configuration through that forefoot. If so, it's got a few more sprigs through that toe-off phase than what you get out of your Tigreor, so 5 through that medial forefoot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's a few more sprigs through there to give your foot a little bit more traction when you're toeing off. Again, yes, it makes the boot a little bit stiffer, but the support's there, it's warranted. HG 10mm heel to toe gradient, and on their Solite midsole platform. So Solite was the old EVA foam they used to use before they started engineering the flight foam technology. So Solite's still floating around, you see it in some of their lower end running shoes. However, they've used Solite EVA in this little boot here to give the foot a little bit of assistance when you're running. That's a key factor, because before, I said about these boots is the Tigreor and this little fella here, the Flash. I'll get my names right here, sorry guys. The box is mixed up, I'm so sorry. Flash. The Flash. The reason they've got the EVA foam, flight foam and Solite is because they are a little bit stiffer and a little bit firmer underfoot. So by injecting that midsole, just gives the foot a little bit more protection underneath when you're running around. So there you have it, guys. In terms of the boots, they've done it again. Asics have sort of engineered a new and improved Tigreor. They've carried the Lethal Testimonial over. They've carried the Menace in a few more colours, and obviously the Flash, which is a fantastic addition to their moulded football boot series for 2018. There are a few more boots in their range. The Lethal Ultimate series, which we'll do another video on separately, because there's a lot more about those boots that I'd like to dive in and give you a bit more detail. Yeah, fantastic, guys. So hopefully this has given you some information at home that will make your next football boot selection a little bit easier. So until then, happy running. We'll see you next time.